And so, like, I would say the perfect job is more about the outcome. And they have a backyard that is a shaded, weed filled, mosquito infested hell. Like, I'm like, all right, this is a part of the job. And all of a sudden, one of the building managers comes running up and he's like going nuts.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Mo Money, Mo Problems podcast, a podcast dedicated to the trials, triumphs, and insights of green industry business owners. I'm your host, Matt Foreman, and today we got Johnny Kunen with Native NY Gardens up in New York City. Now, this is a really interesting business because Native NY Gardens isn't your typical landscaping company. They've built a niche around native plant landscape design and installation across New York City, working on everything from rooftops and terraces to brownstones, shared gardens, and urban outdoor living spaces. Johnny, so pumped to have you here today.
The Foreman. Thank you for having me, bro. I appreciate it. Really excited
Thanks.
to get to talk to you, man. And I'm a big fan of the show, dude. I really been listening to a lot of the episodes and just I'm grateful to be on it, man.
Great. Well, it's an honor to have you here. So, very interested. How did we get started? Were you always in New York? This is obviously a bit different than probably what most of our listeners do and where they're at. So, talk to me. I know, super broad question, but how did we get to where we're at?
Appreciate you opening the floor to me, man. And again, I just want to say, like, I said this off the show, but this is not exactly the office. Forgive me for the background. I do got my homies, Bernie and Homer, sitting here. So, I just want to say that. But yeah, I'm from New York. I'm native to New York City. I started in landscaping by working for a company in Brooklyn. Learned a lot of different things. Not, how should I put this? Sort of learned how I would run a company differently in that experience. And so then I was with a couple of my friends at the time. This was about 10 years ago. We were in my parents' backyard and we were saying, we should just start our own company. At that time, I was planning on becoming a gym teacher. I was coaching high school sports. And we're sitting back there. One of my buddies has a real passion for native plants. And I'm going to take credit for the name. I was like, you know what? Native NY Gardens. Let's go with that. It was solid name, and I want to talk about why I think that name is important at some point in the show, sort of when we talk about advertising and such. So we'll come back to that. Um, but yeah, we specialize in native plants, and for those who don't really know a lot about that, what that means in our case is plants that are native to the Northeast. So these plants have evolved in the Northeast United States or the Northeast, look at a map, whatever continent for hundreds of thousands of years alongside native ecology. So, think about dragonflies, bees, butterflies, birds. And why they're so important is that in landscaping, there's a lot of ornamental landscaping. There was sort of a typical use of European and Asiatic plants that are sometimes invasive, but at the very least, not really beneficial to the local ecology, right? And so, we viewed landscaping as an opportunity to bring in more native plants at a time when there was sort of a movement towards that kind of going on. And, what you're doing is you're not just creating beautiful green spaces, but you're creating ecologically beneficial spaces for the birds and bees and et cetera and so on. And so it's a cool opportunity to like do something good for the planet while you're doing something, typical work. So yeah, that's where I'll start.
It's amazing. All right. And so we're doing this in cityscape, right? How did we land on this, especially considering like, all right, well, we're urban jungle, not a lot of ground to plant
Right.
things in. We're going to the rooftops. How do we get customer number one?
It's a good question, man. You know, yeah, I would say to that, like, you're right. It's not like the landscapes that a lot of your other guests have talked about. I don't even bring a lawnmower in my truck. We don't have lawns to mow more than, the biggest lawns we would mow typically are like people's rectangular backyards that are maybe 20 feet wide, 50 feet long. And a lot of times, rather than having a lawn, they have a patio and whatever else. So, customer number one, why I said the name is important, right? So, I said Native NY Gardens. And throughout this podcast, we're going to say, like, what advice would you give to someone, right? And so, this was a sort of a happy accident. We picked Native NY Gardens because we're from New York, native plants. But what happened is people who are searching for native plants in New York were finding us. So then they'd hit us up and they want what we're providing right then and there. And so what I tell my I got a buddy who's, wants to start an irrigation company and he's solid. He does irrigation for us, but he wants to get his thing. And I'm like, listen, don't call your company Frank the Tank and Sons. Like, no one's going to be looking for Frank the Tank and Sons when they go on the computer. No disrespect to Frank the Tank and his sons. They're going to be looking for irrigation specialists, New York. So I'm like, look, let's set you up with a company, call it New York Irrigation Specialists LLC. And now he's going to get a natural sort of CEO bump just like that. And so, to your listeners out there, like who are thinking about starting a company or splitting off, whatever, ever, take that advice for what it's worth. Maybe you don't like it, but it might be helpful to you down the road. And I would say customer number one was, yeah, people who were looking for native plants and they found us just like that.
So there's definitely a lot to take away from the name itself. I get it. It's one of those things, and I've seen people where in the name it says near me, which I always find hilarious. So you obviously strategically name the company with the hopes that obviously people are going to be finding you very like on the nose what you're trying to what you're selling with the name. So I love that. Okay, so customer number one comes through the door. Walk me through like what's a consultation look like? How much is your involvement versus like the potential client's involvement? Is it just you kind of walking them through everything? Do they have stuff in mind that you have to say, that's probably not the best way to do things? Like, what does that typically look like for you?
Yeah, so I think that, every sale is a little bit different, right? We have kind of bounced back and forth about what do we want to do from, charging for consultations, charging for designs because, you know, some people there's a lot of pros and cons, right? Like some people they hear, oh, a consultation, a design and estimate is going to cost me $250. Well, Frank the Tank does that his consultation for free, right? Well, in one way, there's a positive there because I'm like, okay, well, these guys don't really want to spend money, right? So they're not going to spend the 250. Maybe they're not going to spend much more than that. At the same time, you're kind of lose and I'll just inverse if they are spending 250 with you to do your consultation and I go there personally, meet with them, talk about their space, give them ideas, whatever. If they spend that money, they're pretty well roped in and working with you at that point, right? Like, and you can even say like, listen, if you go along with this project, we'll deduct 250 from your final cost of the project and fine. Either way, once they spend that money, you're very likely to work with them, I think. At the same time, like as the economy has tightened, slowed, whatever, there may be less people who want to spend money on designs. And so we're like, okay, why don't we go have this meeting? Won't charge them anything. A lot of people don't even want garden designs right now. Like they say they trust you. At a certain point, you build up a portfolio and they're like, okay, this guy knows. We talk about what they want. I talk about what would work. My colleague talks about what would work and we figure it out. Right. My role, we do, I co-own the company with a buddy of mine and we do everything. I mean, we have a crew, but my voice is affected today by the fact that I've been working outside and there's all kinds of pollen in the air. So forgive me for that. Not that I have the best voice to begin with, but I'm a little allergenic today because of it. But we do it all. Right. And so, I would say that's sort of like how the consultation practice works, right? People call you, they find us in a variety of different ways. I don't advertise at this point, and I was listening to one of your buddies talking about advertising on Yelp. And I wanted to say, like, we did advertise early on Yelp. And what we found was a lot of jobs that were like, hey, can you come mow my tiny lawn? Can you come get the leaves off? But it wasn't like, hey, I want a full design and build garden. And so we cut that. And I do plan on coming back to those Yelp days when you talk about like nightmare jobs. We'll come back to it. But anyway, yeah, I hope I'm not, you know, throwing you off with your questioning here.
No, it's great. And also to just go with you were mentioning the guest when we were talking about Yelp. That day was actually really funny for me. And maybe if you watch that podcast episode back, I'm kind of like laughing internally because I think I had just finished filming content talking about how you should not be on Yelp and why, the big reasons why and everything. It was so funny because I was like, oh man, we just spent a lot of time like writing the content, filming the content just for the guests to come on board and champion them a
Isn't that
bit.
how it always goes though, man? Like, that's always how it goes,
So
you
I
know?
just, yeah, I did have to be like, okay, hey, whatever's working for you. If it's working for you, I mean,
Hey,
obviously, different strokes, different folks. It's
and
totally fine.
I do wanna say, like, I'm not gonna, crap on your reporting about Yelp. Like, I think there are some positives. People
Yeah,
who are going on Yelp looking for work, they're looking for work. Like, they're gonna hire somebody to come do this thing, like, no doubt. People who are like, "I'm Googling native plants. Do I want it? Do I not? Do I wanna do it myself?" I get a lot of people who call me and they just want an opinion or a phone. I mean, I had a phone c I didn't actually cover this before, a question about, like, bad language on here because, like, I drop a couple curse words every now and again. This is a
bring it
family
on.
show, though. It's a
Fine.
family
Nah,
show. The
absolutely
form
fine.
I had a call, this lady was like, "This is not even a curse word," but she was like, "Oh, like, I really want, like, pussy willow," and that's not a curse word, but I was like, "It's a random call to get," and she's like, "Do you think I should sing to it?" And I was like, "Is this like
Okay.
a prank phone call? Like, what's going on?" Like, she's like, I'm gonna stop it right there, but the conversation devolved from there. And that's just to say, like, when you're getting broad searches about native plants, you're gonna
Yeah.
get a broad variety of people reaching out about a lot of different stuff. Whereas on Yelp, if I'm like, "Listen, I'm Johnny the leaf blower," I'm gonna get some leaf blowing jobs on Yelp. The reality is, though, I don't really want that kind of work, right? So, there you go.
Okay. So I'm really interested, obviously, like, okay, people like me, non natives to New York, I have such a hard time wrapping my head around just the logistics of New York. So, like, something that's going on in my mind is like, how do you source your plants? Like, what does that even look like? Do you have a nursery nearby? Do these get imported? Like, what does this typically look like? But like, once a job is completed, like, do you have any on hand? Like, how does that whole process work for you?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I do wanna talk a little bit about New York at some point in this show, just for those of you listeners who've never been or been for a brief time, just to give a kind of my view of it. But to your question, I drive basically a 180-mile round trip to South Jersey to a couple different nurseries to get all my plants. I make that trip like once a week, and it's one of the things that made me want to do this work, because when I was working for a company many, many years and the boss would send me out to pick that stuff up, like, it was such a joy, like, to just get kinda out of the city, get that open road, go to, like, a totally different landscape, you're in the country, and then sort of over the course of 10 years, like, I've made some really strong relationships with those nurseries. And obviously, 100 miles, 180 miles, oh, it'd be what? You do the math. 90 miles south of here, the prices of plants are going to be less than the prices of plants closer because, in a city this crowded, this expensive, you just look at a place, you go like, the square footage is going to determine the price that they pay to be there. And the price that they pay to be there is going to determine the cost of their goods. So whatever nurseries there are around here, and there's like a Home Depot, there's a Lowe's, they've actually gotten a little better with the stuff they have, but still it's a very small selection. You got to go far away. Some people go to Long Island. I go to New Jersey. Not a big fan of Long Island, but whatever. And yeah, I love that part of my job. And so yeah, that's what I do for our plant material. And I do have a front yard, I do have a backyard, and I store some stuff, I grow some stuff. Sometimes I'll get a bunch of stuff for the week and then send it out to my three different jobs, or whatever, four different jobs that we have. But there's never enough space in the van for all the plants that I need, and that's just the reality. So I always come back and I'm like, I forgot something I needed, and that's how it goes.
Yeah. So it sounds like, and I love the idea of the charging for the consultation because it really like shows a commitment. So I'm wondering, I mean, just again, for those that don't fully like can't wrap their heads around just like how the logistics of anybody in the green industry in New York City would work. What would you say is like the hardest part about landscaping in New York? Is it the nursery side? Is it like trying to go from consultation that like I would imagine that is a lot of just going up and down and, like, I can't even imagine what traffic's like.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, right? And there's challenges whether you're in the city or whether you're in Florida in your case, and you're in Florida, right? I got that right. All right. Some of your dudes in Alabama, like, we all got problems. But I would say I have maybe 3, 4 jobs I want to get to in a day. They're all maybe a mile and a half apart, and it will take me an hour and a half to get from one to the other. And that's a disaster. You just so I'll be like in my mind, I'm like, well, yeah, we can get to these 4 places. Like, why would we not be able to? And then I'm sitting in my car and I'm like, 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches.
Yeah.
And I'm just lucky I like being in the car because, like, my other buddy who drives for us, he starts losing his freaking mind, and it's a problem. Like, I'm like, "All right, listen, this is part of the fucking sorry, this is a part of
No,
the
you're
job."
good.
You know? Like, this is gonna be what will be. So, that's one of the things that's challenging. I would say, like, container gardens, because like you said, you're doing rooftops, you're doing, different areas where plants are in container, and that presents a different challenge than, like, the people in the country who might have to deal with deer coming and eating everything or, honestly, I've never worked so far out there to know. But for me, it's like, look, if you have a container garden in the summer and your irrigation cuts out for 3 days and it's a heat wave, everything's gone because the containers dry out really quick. So, you have this challenge of like, you can't possibly get everywhere at once to check on everything all the time. And this year, I mean, we had a tremendously cold winter with a ton of snow. Then we had a 90-degree heat wave. Then we had a cold spell. And so like the weather is just messing up the plants.
Yeah.
Clients don't always accept that. So that's a challenge. And I would say there are clients that are a bit of a challenge. And maybe I imagine that's the same way wherever you are, but we probably get into that a little bit more too.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys really had some rough winters this year. And so do you guys have man, and again with the nursery thing, like, do you guys have any sort of warranty? Like, is it you going out? I know you said you have a team as well. Like, what does that look like on a typical basis? Because yeah, to your point, I mean, even though it's out of your control in many of these instances, the clients don't care. Like,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to make them right.
Yeah, and I think that legally, to a certain point, you have to have a 1-year warranty on your materials. If there's no irrigation, I tell people straight up, like, it's hard for me to really guarantee this plant for if I can't be sure it's getting watered, and I'll discount replacements. But we've had some gardens where like, things just go wrong and then you're going back and forth. I mean, I got rooftops where they wanted an evergreen screen and it's like, you guys are going to be getting tremendous wind. And in the winter, you want an evergreen screen. Those evergreen trees actually need to be watered. And so like if you're going to have nobody water them and they're going to get barreled by cold winds, they're going to die. And that's what we've seen. And so you just you just do the best you can.
So I'm interested because, and if I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, you guys also do carpentry work, right? Like when you're building things out. So you obviously have multiple different, I would even call it revenue streams in terms of like what you're offering. What does, in a perfect world, a client comes through your doors, or I guess you go through theirs? What's the perfect job? Like, what do you typically like? What are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a good question because, like, a lot of times you think you have the perfect job and then things change. So, when I was first starting out doing smaller jobs, I was like, man, I really want to be doing bigger jobs. And then when you start doing bigger jobs, you're like, man, the headaches that go along with these bigger jobs, you might have been better off doing smaller jobs. So, like, the perfect job, I mean, I'll have a job where it's like, I got to plant like 10 tiny shrubs. What could possibly go wrong? And then shit'll go crazy. And so, like, I would say the perfect job is more about the outcome. In an ideal world, though, like my colleague who handles most of our woodworking is out with his crew. They're doing a deck, they're doing a fence, and I'm on a roof doing a big plant installation or a courtyard doing a plant installation. And in a dream world, you put your shovel in the ground and you don't find a tremendous amount of construction debris that was just thrown into the courtyard and covered
Mhm.
with soil. Because then you're like, well, I have 100 plants to put in. I had no idea that I was going to have to dig up, all these giant cinder blocks. Right. So, to me, I think the perfect job is about the outcome. Like it was chill. The client was nice. The job went well. And that happens more often than not. But at the same time, like when that does happen, I really feel like, man, I gotta be grateful to the Almighty on this one because of all the types of stuff that can go wrong, like,
Mhm.
and if I can expand on that a little bit too, like, we had a big rooftop job and Client signed on, building said it's okay. We start bringing up all kinds of materials, start doing our woodworking, we're building planters. And all of a sudden, one of the building managers comes running up and he's like going nuts. And he's like, I didn't sign off on this. We need a structural engineer to come in and do all this kind of stuff. And now we have materials up there, we put labor in, and we have a client who's like, well, what's going to happen here? And now you're just, and not only that, you're not taking on other projects necessarily, or really fighting to get other projects because you think, well, we just got a whale. Let's focus on the whale. And all of a sudden, that whale's got split in half, and you're like picks left there to kind of figure out what to do. In this business, I think a lot of your interviewers might say that or interviewees, when things are going right, that's when things are good. And a lot of times it's just this guy said like you got to go somewhere and put out a fire, and then it's a lot of firefighting too. So
Mhm.
hard job, man, but here we are.
Yeah. I'm very interested. Again, this is just, I feel like a lot of this conversation is just going to be my ignorance and things. When it comes to just the materials, especially like getting them up several flights, is there a standardized process, or do you have to like approach this as it comes? Like, what's that typically look like for you guys?
Yeah. And I'm gonna try to get some of these things like on film this year and put it on Instagram because I do think
That's a great idea.
people yeah, I mean, I do think people would be interested to see like how did all this stuff get to the roof? And like in an ideal world, there's a big elevator, boom, boom, and you're out. Yesterday, I'm carrying up 10-foot light poles up 11 flights of stairs. And it's 90 degrees out. And it's like, but you know what? And I like that. I was like, this is cool. Unless I have a heart attack, this is cool. Like this is like a challenge. And like I didn't want to do it more than once, but it was cool. And so, it's always different though. Like you could be like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna bring materials to a backyard. You'd think straight shot, but like the door leads to another door and another door. And now you're like, how are we supposed to do this? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of logistics. And, for me, like one of the things that because I know at some point you might ask like what are the things that I want to see improved, and part of it is about like my ability to just manage that stress because like in the morning I got three people going three different places, three different crews, and I'm just like, man, are they going to get there on time? Is this going to go well? Is there going to be a problem? And I like feel it, and I think I'm relatively healthy, but I was just talking to a foreman, not the foreman, but a foreman. And yeah, and he was like, he had a heart attack, and I was like, damn, dude, like you're working in a building with 100 apartments, your phone's ringing, someone's sink, someone's toilet, someone's stove. Where's this guy? Where's that guy? And he's like, oh, and like and I wonder, and maybe it's a question for you, like in New York, it feels like everyone is in such a hurry like, this needs to happen and
Mhm.
honk, honk, and da, 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 and I'm like, "Is that you tell me, bro, like, is that your experience too?"
I mean, it's hearing, I hate how bad this sounds. It sounds very stereotypical, like what we like outside of New York would envision New York being like. So, as a business owner, yes, there's a million fires. You have like, I love my team. My team is so talented. They're great at what they do. But then sometimes it's just like, what is happening? When did this catch on fire and how? And so yeah, and you have that reliance on people as the business owner. It's a while before that goes away. It's a while before it goes away. And so I know one thing that helps though, and this is actually going to transition to my next question is, well, one, do you price based off of those logistics, those potential logistical issues of like getting the necessary equipment or any of the plants or whatever it may be to where it needs to go? And then also, do you have minimums? Because I know from a stress perspective, hey, it's a lot less stressful when I'm charging a lot more for like a job that is going to cause me stress. Cause I'm like, okay, this sucks, but I'm getting.
Yeah, I would say like, we don't have okay, yes, we try to charge for the logistics, right? Like you have to, and the prices vary by a lot of different variables, right? What's the economic status of your client, right? Like, can they afford what do they expect to pay? I mean, and I want to talk about that too in a second. But as far as minimums, the issue is that we've now amassed like we have like, I don't know, 75, 80 returning customers who want us to come in and turn on their irrigation and they want us to come in and do a little maintenance. And I told you to get from one block to the next block takes an hour. So like, and I can't charge them hundreds of dollars for a service that's going to take some cases 20 minutes, you know?
Mhm.
But then I'm like, here we are where we are putting off bigger projects to service our clients that we care about and like a lot and want to maintain a relationship with, but we're doing it at the expense of making money. You know what I mean? And that sucks. And I try to like be like, all right, we're gonna have our Frank the Tank is gonna do all the turn on all the irrigation jobs. Like, I'm not driving in traffic to turn on a freaking irrigation system for no money. Like that's you're right. That's when stuff sucks. But yeah, I mean, we don't have a minimum. And I think that I was thinking about this show last night and telling my colleague, like, bro, like we have to tell people because you had asked the guy about gas prices. You brought up gas prices in one of your episodes. And I was like, well, I gotta tell this dude, like, bro, like, we can't charge $120 for something, even if we're there for 20 minutes, because it takes an hour and a half out of your day. And it costs money in gas and it costs money in tolls. Like New York has now tolls to go into the city and go here and there. So I think we do have to make some changes in that regard, for sure.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that, and I don't, like, always push back, but you're an expert, and that's what a lot
No,
of times people should be paying for, is your
yeah.
expertise. Here's a great example. I had a my stove went out. This is a real example. My stove went out, and so I call an appliance store, they come out to fix it, and the guy knew exactly what the problem was. It took it he used a screwdriver, and that was it. It wasn't so it didn't cost him like these very expensive tools. He used a screwdriver. He fixed the entire thing in 15 minutes, charged me $180. And it's, I mean, and between me calling him, getting to my house, and then being done, it might have been 30 entire minutes. And I mean, what is that rate? It's $180 times 4. I mean, yeah, I mean that's almost $800 an hour. Ugh, you can't look at it that way because I'm paying for his expertise. You're the expert, so I'd be really interested in and yeah, you do have that balancing act, especially if you have recurring clients who love you, you love them. It's a whole other thing, but that's what people are paying for is your expertise. So
Yeah, I hear you.
what's the area like for you in terms of, like, competition?
You know, there is too much work for you to even be worried about competition, honestly.
Nice.
Now that may change. I mean, I worry that like with this, coming AI, the chat GPT god just slaying us all. If everybody loses their jobs that they go to work and type on the computer and they're all home, like, well, what am I going to do? Well, I guess I'll be a gardener. Well, maybe at that point you got two problems because you got a lot more gardeners and you got a lot less people coming home from their computer jobs ready to pay money for gardening. So,
Mm,
I can't really feel super confident in the way things, but I'm not going to go, let me go back to something different. I want to tell you about like the cost of labor in New York compared to some of your people. I feel like they might find this interesting. And part of this is also, you're going to be like, bro, you're freaking nuts. You're paying starting like 25 to $30 per hour for your people because the cost of living is so
mm,
goddamn expensive in New York City that like even at $25 an hour, $200 a day, like good luck. You know what I mean? Truly, like a bag of groceries costs the same as a takeout now. Like things are outrageous. Rent is insane. Like your expenses. So when I'm going an hour and a half for a 20-minute job and I'm paying a dude $25 an hour, I got to factor that in too, right? And then this is where you're going to think I'm crazy because you've had a lot of guys talk about like how do they manage their crew, and there's a lot of interesting stuff, right? This is what we do that's nuts. That's I don't think a lot of people do this. We decided, maybe because we're fat and like to eat, that like we are going to buy lunch 5 days a week for everybody and possibly a coffee too. Because what I was looking at is like, look, my old job that I did 12 years ago, they were like, all right, go get food now. And it's like, well, we walk out, we go, we get our food, we come back, an hour goes by. And I'm like, listen, man, like to my buddy, like if we just buy the food, first off, the food's good. That's one of the best things about New York City is the food. But secondly, everybody's
Definitely.
working. Yeah, everybody's working. You bring the food, 20 minutes in one door, back to work. And like, so yeah, you're paying more for sure. And like, if you really like look at like at the end of the year, like we're like, man, we spent like, we might have spent 10 grand on food. And you can write some of that off. But it's like, yeah, but what did we get for that 10 grand? Like, first off, we all enjoyed lunch tremendously. Everybody's mood, everybody loves coming to work because they know, what are we going to get today? Well, what part of the city are we in? Are we going to get something? And like that, that translates not just to saved time in terms of like, hours of people wandering the streets, but you also have people who are happy to be at work and so like, that means a lot to me because my first job, I'm telling you, like, it was a lot of I hope his boss does this my old boss doesn't hear this, but a lot of the day was spent just like everyone just talking shit about like the job. And I was like, man, like I don't want that for us, you know? And
Yeah.
we definitely I think confidently we don't have that. People are very happy to work for us and they've worked for us for years. So that's where I imagine your people down the road listening to this are like, yo, this dude's nuts to be buying food like that, but maybe not.
I mean, I absolutely love it. Yeah, maybe when I first heard it, I was like, "Yikes!" But
Right.
everything you said, so smart. I mean, the logistics alone, the time saved, I think the most important component of that is just the camaraderie that's gonna be built there, how much your team's going to appreciate you and the company, and yes, that's definitely going to reflect in the work and the people that, they're going to be interacting with, because at the end of the day, it's your reputation on the line, and so, yeah, keeping everybody happy, I definitely have changed my mind that I think it's a great idea. That's definitely an amazing takeaway.
You just try to keep it under $10 a person, ideally. And in New York, that's not easy, but like,
Yeah, I was
and
about
you
to say, what
charge
does
for
that
it.
get you over there?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's hard now. I mean, we just from
Yeah.
last year, this year, we're like, man, lunches are like went from being $10 to like $14, $15 if you're not careful more. And like, that's where it gets tough because like, especially on those days when you're driving around doing irrigation jobs, it's like, bro, this is not we're not making anything. And I wanted to say this too about like sort of like I mean, at some point I want to talk about like what our clientele is really like now. And then I gotta tell you what it was like way back when. And part of me is doing this podcast. I'm happy to be doing it, but it's a little bit like a time capsule for me. Like in 5 years, like I'm hopefully I'll get to be on your show again, but I'll be able to come back to this and be like, where was I? Where were we 5 years ago? You know what I mean? Like, and so this is really an interesting opportunity. Like, I wouldn't have just recorded this by myself, right? Right. So, but I do want you selfishly at some point to ask me about like a bad job, and then I can. But you could ask me other stuff first.
I love them. No, I'm that's so selfish of me to, like, just be so excited about the bad stories on my guest's
No,
behalf,
it's
but
great.
we'll
It's
we'll
great.
definitely
It's
get
great.
there.
Yeah.
I am interested though. So, like, what is your typical and so this can also transition into like what they were versus what they are now, but what is a typical customer? What are they looking for? Like, do you go to someone and they know exactly what they want? Do they come in and say, "Hey, I don't know what I want. I need you to tell me," because obviously you're the expert. I see all the educational material you guys make. What is a typical like session look like for a potential customer?
I'm gonna shut my window because I'm hearing a gas powered leaf blower going down. I don't know if that's you're getting that, but I
I
don't
can't hear it
want
at all.
all right,
But
if you
yeah,
can't hear it, then fine, that's cool. Okay, so I would say about 60 this fluctuates, right? But like about 60% of our clients are residential homeowners, renters, whatever, and 40% are management companies representing a big building with 50 to 100 freaking 400 apartments, right? And in those you're doing their roof, you're doing their entrance garden, you're doing their courtyard, right? I would say the majority of the time, people are deferring to us for what our suggestions are. Usually, we get a person who wants a synthetic lawn, couple plants, and it's like, okay, I know what you want, and we'll get there, right? The thing is, so the management companies we sort of really got into in the last 3 years. And it's the type of thing where like if you prove yourself, then you're going to keep getting a lot of work. And in one way, that's great because nobody's spending their own money. I used to be a basketball coach, right? And I was going to tell you that like I have gotten to experience sort of like the two areas where I think people are the most I had a word for it, but like maybe unrealistic, right? And they're unrealistic about their kids' talent at basketball, and they're unrealistic about how far they think their money should go. And I get to deal with both, or I've gotten to deal with both, and they're both difficult. Neither one, like why is my kid not getting the last shot of the game? Because your kid sucks. Like why is like $500 not enough to redo my entire backyard? Well, $500 is not a lot of money anymore. Like God love you. So the management companies are great because like they're not spending their own money, right? The trouble though, and this is what I've sort of learned here, is that like with management companies, the bigger the project, the longer they're going to take to pay. And the last couple of years, like we've in the spring, we hit the ground with big projects or right at the end of the fall. Big projects. Some of our biggest projects are for management companies. And then 60 days go by and 90 days go by and you're like, all your small work after is covering the costs of your big projects at that point, right? So, like, now it's the end of May. I'm getting paid for the big jobs we did at the beginning of March, and everything in between has gone towards paying. So, like, if I'm like, well, are we doing well? Are we having a good year? It's like, well, it's kind of hard to tell because, like, our credit cards are high as shit. And all this money that we're owed, I don't know when it's going to come back. And when it does, will we have picked up another big job we're paying for? So, your management jobs, they're good, but they come with their own set of challenges. And, I don't want to put like your listeners might be thinking, well, why doesn't he just like give them a good contract that like has teeth? Right. And like the answer to that, it's like, I feel like I'm like Troy McClure from The Simpsons. Like, you might be thinking, like, why did I not give a good contract? Well, like the answer to that is like, if I send them a strong contract with teeth, they're going to send it to their lawyers and their lawyers are going to spend 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Then they're going to send me a long contract. Then I'm either going to have to try to read it or I'm going to have to pay a lawyer to read it. And it's like, okay, I've been working with these companies for years. I know they're going to pay. And as I think we all in this industry know, like we need to be working all the time. Like coming off of a cold winter, like if someone's like, listen, I need 100 plants, I'm not gonna be like, well, okay, shit, here's like a 10-page contract with legal. Like I'm like, we'll be there tomorrow. And so, that's the question though, is like, should we try to be like stricter with our contracts, even if it costs us time? And you don't want to be in a position where they're like, well, look, like there's Frank the Tank's landscaping. He's not going to send us this expensive contract to read through. Just go to him. So
Mm,
you end up sort of like risking that when you work with some of those companies, right? And or more like commercial, there's like the commercial residential sort of mix there, right? And that's one of the struggles that I feel like we're kind of navigating now, you know?
yeah. You mentioned it just a bit ago, and I can imagine, gosh, throwing this into the logistics of what it sounds like net 180 for you in some cases. How do you guys survive winters?
Yeah, it's some winters are better than others, man, because we've not been able to get into snow removal on any meaningful level. Like all these buildings that we have, it's not like the suburbs where everyone has a driveway they want plowed. Like they have their stairs, that's it. And if they're a bigger building, they have a whole staff. Like then their staff they just if their staff knew how to landscape, they wouldn't hire us. You know what I mean? Like they just gonna put them on whatever. So in the winter, we're trying to do like demos, fences, decks, anything stonework, pavers, patios. This last winter, cold, snowy hell. Like we had 3 feet of snow that stayed on the ground for like 6 weeks, and nobody's looking out their window at all that snow, being like, we should put a patio back there. Like,
Yeah.
we should really demo that shed. So, like, we didn't do anything in this winter, barely. We had like 1 or 2 jobs. It was absolutely brutal. And then we came out of that with some big jobs for management companies that cost a lot of money in labor, cost a lot of money in materials, and take a long time to pay. So I'm like, and I just like, again with the like managing stress, I'm just like, dude, this sucks. Like, why am I not? I should have been a plumber. Like this, like I should have been anything. Like I should have done anything. Not that shit on plumbers, but like I should have been anything. Like this sucks. But then, like you said, when you're making money, you're like, this is not so bad, and then you actually feel good about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, they come, there's the ebbs and flows. I get it. I love this job versus like, why am I doing this to the wow, what a great week we had to the man, this sucks. It can't get any worse than this. And that's just the life of a business owner, really.
Yeah.
Um, the grass is always greener. I know several plumbers and they have these exact
Oh,
same complaints. So
I'm sure. I was wondering who deals with more shit, like it's a tough call, but yeah, I mean, it's really a job where so that's why I say like if you can just manage your own stress and emotions, like I know from listening to your show, you have a kid or some kids. I have a
you
kid,
did.
2 kids, God bless you. And I'm like, nighttime comes around, it's time for her to eat. And like, I don't want to be sitting at the table with her being in my head about like, man, like this client with their dead tree, like I want to be present, and it's like, so like to try to like manage, like that's what, one of the many things I need to improve on apart from general organization of tools and not forgetting plants at the nursery is like managing stress and compartmentalizing work and family and, so that's and it's hard for everybody. So
Yeah. Yeah, but it's huge and I mean, the most important part about all of this is the awareness of that because yeah, being present for any of your loved ones, and taking a step away from work because we all deserve it. We all need it. It's necessary. The world's not gonna like catch on fire if you take a few hours off. It's a hard thing for us to tell ourselves that, and actually live it. Yeah, the fact that you're aware of that, I mean, it is super helpful. And if anything, honestly, that present time probably will help the stress, even if my 1-year old's crying and my 4-month-old is crapping everywhere.
my God,
It's still times that you're gonna cherish because 'cause you're not getting those back.
right. I
Well,
know, but that's tough though. That's
I
tough.
don't mean to dig a knife a little bit further, but I would love to hear about one of the worst situations, the worst jobs, the worst something that's happened, just to, help those stress levels a bit.
Right. So yeah, like, there's different everyone's got stories of like some clients that like wouldn't pay or, whatever. And that's happened only a few times, honestly. And I've worked for hundreds of people. And I view those people as like those are we got in with like criminals in the end. Like you didn't know you were working for a criminal until they decided they weren't going to pay. And as long as it's a small money job, you just okay. The one I want to share though, and I think I was the moment you ever even I started thinking about your podcast, I was like, how am I going to tell this story in a way that's
Like,
not
man,
like risky? This is about 8 years ago. Now co-owner of the business and it's only us. We don't have a crew. We don't have a car. We're renting cars at that point, renting vans, right? And we're working deep in Brooklyn. Like Brooklyn is a huge place. If it were its own city, it has 3 million people. I looked this up for your show. It'd be like the fourth biggest city in the United States. It's a gigantic place. So we're working in this deep part of Brooklyn in basically a shared strip backyard of a couple of doctors' offices. There's an eye doctor. I looked through the window, did an eye test. I have like 20/15 vision, one of the only things I do well. I got good eyes, man. I suck at everything else, but I can see. There's a dentist and there's an empty office that they're renovating, right? And they have a backyard that is a shaded, weed filled, mosquito infested hell. But look, man, we're just starting out and we're like, well, yeah, whatever. We'll clear it for you. We'll do it. We'll go with our clippers, just the two of us with garbage bags. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to take the garbage because we don't even know at that point what we would do with garbage. Now we go to the dump once a week. Like it's like part of our job is going to the dump. At that point, I didn't know where the freaking dump was. So we get everything, we cut everything, we bag everything, and we come back. And we're just about to finish up, wrapping up, and we're like, okay, like where do you want us to like leave the garbage? And like everyone's gone home. It's nighttime, it's dark out, and this one dude, he's the only guy left, and he won't accept that we're not going to take the garbage. He just will not. And he has like construction garbage, and he's just telling us in a very muffled way that like we need to take this garbage. And we're like, listen, man, like we're not taking the garbage. We're not taking it. We can't. We can't. He's like, no, insisting, insisting. We're like, all right, we're thinking about it. We step out and like boom, lightning, thunder, pouring rain. And now we're running to our van and we run to the van and we get in and the guy's there. He's standing there looking at us. And I'm like looking at my buddy and I'm like, we're driving away. And so we're driving in the rain. And in that moment, we're not just leaving this guy with his garbage furious in the rain. we are driving away from really shit jobs, and we're never doing a thing like that again. You know what I mean? And so now, 8 years later, we have 3 vehicles, 3 crews, real work that's not always, I mean, it's harder, arguably now, for sure, than it was then. But we're like where we are today versus where we were then. It's like unfathomable, frankly. And so, like, in 5 years, when I log back onto YouTube and I'm telling my kid who's now, like, old enough to not want to even think about watching this, like, I'm gonna be like, "Well, where what," like, "Look at this," like, like, "This is cool that this exists," And so, again, like, expressing gratitude, like, "I'm grateful to be talking to you, man, like, this is really cool for me, and I just hope I'm not, like, running on rambling and, like, your audience is just like, 'This dude's so annoying.'" I hope that they're at least getting something out of this as I am.
Same. No, Johnny, this is a great, great discussion. And man, I really hope that guy doesn't see this podcast. Like,
I'm
I
not
hope it
worried
doesn't.
about it. I'm not worried about it. No,
That's him.
yeah.
Look at.
I mean, no, but then it was like, "Oh, are they gonna pay?" And then it was like this thing, and they're like, the doctors arguing with the dentist, and then this guy, and they're like, "Are we gonna pay for this?" And they paid. I think we were just like, "Look, if you wanna keep like $200 out of like an $800 thing," is like, I don't care because I'm not coming to pick up this garbage. Again, I didn't even know what to do with it, right? So, and
Yeah.
I was very clear. Like, this isn't the case of me being like, I'm gonna run away from my responsibilities. Like, trust me, I did my job. But like sometimes you work with people that they just want more than you've agreed to. And then
Mhm.
where's that going to go? And I think that goes back to this part about like working for people who decide they're not going to pay is like to me one of the most important things in any kind of like strategic part of your life is like the idea of seeing the forest from the trees. Like I just had a job now where like this dude's like just decided like we got like 90% of the way through the work and I don't want to talk too much about it, but he just decided he's not going to pay. And it's like small job in a place where we have a big contract outside of them. And I'm like, look, dude, like it's not worth it to kick a hornet's nest. Nothing good is going to come from it. Yeah, we're going to lose some money in the short term, but we'll get plenty of opportunities and like whatever. If that dude wants to look at his trees and have some part of him know that like maybe he should have paid for that or maybe he did us wrong, that's on him. Like I can't, you know, let a let a bad thing kind of fester. Like just move on and go and do good things for good people and live with that. So like sometimes you're gonna take hits like in anything. But you just try to, I would just say like strategically think about like what is the best way to handle this. And it's never slashing tires. You know what I mean? Like it's never going crazy because that's not gonna help you in the long run. So that's a little bit of advice out there too.
Yeah. Well, Johnny, I mean, I've only gotten a chance to get to know you for about an hour here, but it's already said a lot about the kind of person you are. Very likable guy. Love the personality. You're very like fiery, which is amazing, like in the best way.
I
The
appreciate it.
stories you tell are incredible, and I love the awareness that you have about stress, and I think what's really important is that you're also obviously a very obviously an expert in your space, and I would love to just continue to like see and watch you utilize like your just god-given talents of like gift of gab mixed with your educational side of things. Like there's just absolutely no way that you don't succeed. See, kind of just like combining those two. So it really has been great getting to know you. On top of that, like you obviously have great character too, to the point of like, like don't even sweat the small things. Yes, even if you have to take a hit, but the fact that you're even buying lunches for your team, like, dude, you're just such a great guy. So it really has been a pleasure getting a chance to talk to you, get to meet you. I know we are kind of running short on time, so I do want to kind of give you the floor. Just the who are you? What's the business? Who do you serve? Where do you serve? Just go ahead, give the elevator pitch.
All right. Well, first off, the Foreman, Matt Foreman, absolutely all star character yourself. And you tell everyone that they, are a great persons. But I appreciate it. It's all love.
I really, really mean it.
All right, get out of here. I run a landscaping business in New York City. I try to. We're trying to do like, in a world that is difficult, we're trying to expand into doing more social media, trying to eventually do some YouTube stuff because as I'm sure you know, like some of these people who just play with toys on YouTube make way more money than you and me doing landscaping. So, like God bless them. So like I'm trying to try that too. My dream is to be like part serious landscaping and part like the office, like YouTube series. But man, who has the time, right? So like I'm just starting out to do my own little, Instagram, social media crap. But yeah, man, to all your listeners, like, I mean, I hope they've found this episode to be interesting. I have found their episodes and the other ones to be really interesting. And like this is a really cool community that you're building and a lot to learn from each person. And so like yeah, I'm grateful, man, and I'm excited to hopefully maybe a couple of years from now, a year from now, we'll jump back on and I'll be I'll still be listening, God willing. So yeah, appreciate you, Matt, and yeah, man, thanks for having me. Seriously,
Of course, it's without a doubt that we're definitely going to be doing a follow up series with you. I mean, it would obviously be my honor. I feel like I still have a million things I want to talk to you about. And obviously, I want to continue to see the progress, and as do you. You want where was I now versus where am I going? And yeah, so I'm excited to have you on in the future. But Johnny, absolute pleasure getting to know you. Congratulations on everything that you've built so far with Native NY Gardens and what you're about to do. Again, I have no doubt it's going to succeed. Manage the stress. You're doing amazing. I mean, with me or with anybody else that's listening, I mean, I'm sure you can find a lot of support reaching out if you ever need help with anything. Like there's others out there, but dude, you're doing a great job. So pleasure to have you on and thanks for sharing everything.
thank you, Matt. Keep doing your thing, man. I appreciate you.
All right. And for everybody that watched, and I'm sure that there will be a lot of people that got something from this. If you could go ahead, share this with somebody else that you think might find some value in this, whether it's just learning about a amazing story, a hilarious story about like the things that have gone wrong, or just ignorant people like me who just don't understand like how the logistics of New York City work. And now we're bringing the green industry into it. Feel free to share this episode. But again, thank you for everybody for listening to this. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.
Smash the like button too. Smash the like
Smash
button.
that like and subscribe, hit the
Yeah,
bell, all the
do
notifications.
it.
Yeah.
Do it. All right,
All
Matt.
right. Thanks, Scotty.
Later, man.